Isn't it something, though, how fresh, how, I don't know, contemporary, how relevant this text feels today? Isn't it? Isn't that kind of, can we just stop for a second and just acknowledge that? That you can read this text now and it feels present in our time. And yet you understand this was written 2,000 years ago. It's hard to understand how something can be so transcendent, and yet Jesus is clearly touching on something which is like ubiquitous to the human experience. This desire for more than we need or that is good for us, and the focus of our life and our energy and our resources on the things that don't matter, on the wrong things. It's just something that human beings have always struggled with. And we are no different. You could make the argument that we are worse at this, even than his original audience would have been. And so it carries with it great value for us this morning. Every year, people make resolutions. And because this is the first day of a new year, it's right for us to consider that urge, that human desire to say, I want to be different, I want to be better, and I'm going to try this year to be some better version of myself, to do my life, to live my life in a way that's more what I want it to be, more what I hoped that it would be at some time. There's just, even if it's just for a moment, there's this window of time where human beings hope again, where they think certain things are possible. You really think you're going to go to the gym this year, even just for an hour. You believe that. You really think you're going to eat differently. You really think this is going to be the year. And just, typically speaking, does it work out that way? No. In fact, most resolutions are gone by the third week of the year. It's health clubs stay in business because we believe again. And so we buy that membership that we never use again. I wonder, there's a story about the FAA actually tests, the way that they test windshield durability, which is important because if you're flying a plane and a bird hits your windshield, and let's say the bird goes through the windshield into your face, that's going to be bad for you as the pilot and also the entire plane. Can we agree? So you need a windshield that will actually survive. The windshield will survive a collision with a bird going 400, 500 miles an hour. Do you understand the problem? So what they do to test windshields, you can't just throw a bird up while a plane is going 500 miles an hour. So what they've done is they've invented a cannon which shoots chickens at windshields. Yeah, it's a chicken cannon, and they can shoot the chicken at 500 miles an hour into a stationary windshield. Well, that's the thing. So originally, the FAA was shooting live chickens at their windshields, and that troubled people. You see. So they made a change, and they started shooting dead chickens at their windshields. Now, so this is the story I read, that the British government was trying to test the windshields of a high-speed train. They had this new kind of high-speed train that they were trying to put into service, and so they reached out to the FAA and said, look, can we use your chicken cannon technology to test our windshields to make sure that they could also survive the velocity of, and so the first time they started testing their train windshields, the chickens went through the windshield, through the seat, and embedded itself into the back of the cabin where the train driver says, this is problematic. Now they went back and recalculated the windshield, tensillary strength, and they said this shouldn't be happening, and they kept shooting chickens through their windshields. So they reached back out to the FAA and said, listen, we don't understand what we're doing wrong, can you help us out? And their response back was, did you thaw your chickens? So the mistake they were making was that they were shooting frozen chickens, hard rock, which presumably there will be no frozen birds flying into Windshields. Every year we make resolutions and they never seem to work. But what if your windshield is fine? What if you're just making the wrong kinds of resolutions? I mean, or you're making the right resolutions for the wrong reasons? What if your chickens are frozen? It's a good analogy, but it's going to take you a minute. You'll figure it out later. It's complicated. Your chickens are frozen. So you can try to figure out what's wrong with me. Why don't I ever do my resolutions? Why am I such a weak-willed person? Or you can take a look at the chicken. You can take a look at the resolution you're making itself, or more important, more to the point, and more to, I think, Jesus' point, is what about the heart with which the resolution is made? And what in the end is the goal of it, after all? When we think about a new year, we're rightly drawn to thinking about the whole of our lives and what it is that matters to us and what it is that you actually have to resource, or what it is that you actually have to use in this life. And the truth is, each of us has just the one life. That's all we have. We might think we have other things, and we have access, we have influence over other things. But really, all you have is yourself. This one life to lead, and you can lead it well or you can lead it poorly. And you can lead it for things that last for eternity, or you can lead it for things that last until next week. And this choice remains yours. It remains something that is your choice every single day. What will you invest in? What will you invest the course, the valuables of your life? I kept thinking this week about 1 Peter 4. I'm just going to read this little bit because I think it's so much for us to hear. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received. And when he says gift, he doesn't mean spiritual gift. He means anything that you've been given which is of value. It's given to you, so it's a gift, but it has value. And he says you should use that thing to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. You see, God's grace doesn't just come to us in one way. It comes to us in all these ways. And the gifts that God gives us, the grace of God, the gift of God, becomes something that can give grace again to others in all these different ways, myriad of ways. If anyone speaks, he said, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. In other words, if you're going to do something, do it in a way that's supernatural. Do you speak? Is that something that you do? Then speak as though you're speaking the very words of God. If anyone serves, then they should do so with the strength that God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. What is the end result of your life? What is the end result of the investments that you're making with your life? Is it that you are praised? Is it that the company you work for is praised? Is it that the brands that you like or buy into, that they are praised? Because something at the end of your life will get praise. Something at the end of your life will say, well, that was what it was all about. And he's saying that we ought to live in such a way so that what is praised at the end of our life is Jesus Christ. To him be the glory and the power forever and ever, Peter says. So what are the big gifts of your life? What do you have to steward, after all? I'm gonna choose 4 things this morning. There may be more, but I know that all of us at least have these 4 things. These 4 gifts that we have been given. And then we unwrap again every single day, but we unwrap certainly at the beginning of a year to think about, I have been given this, how will I use it? And the reason why I give you a pen is because I want you to think about these 4 things, and I want you to actually think about, how will I use these this year, personally? The first is your energy, the second is your relationships, the third is your money, and the fourth is your heart. And let's just tackle these one at a time. Let's do a personal inventory today. And if you'll let me, I'm just going to help you think about and guide you through the use of these 4 things. The first thing is your energy. You notice I'm not saying time. There's so much, there was an era where there was a fascination with time management, managing your time. And there's real value in considering how you manage and use your time. But what that did is that made the real value piece, the thing to be managed, was time. And yet actually I think in our day, and in the way we look at the world, the way we experience and work through the world, and I have a whole list of reasons why I believe this, but for the sake of time, what the currency of our lives in this world is not time, it's now energy. How do you steward your own personal energy? Because some things take a long time, but they renew our energy. And some things only take an hour, and you feel like you want to take a nap after you do it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Some things drain you of energy, and some things restore your energy. And so understanding that, the work you do and how you invest, particularly in ministry, but really in all aspects of your life, we have to be thinking about managing our energy. If we can use this text as a starting point to think about energy, let's call it your worry tank. In other words, what are the things that you worry about? So the word there's a sense in which we have taken in this passage, but also Matthew 6, which is the same discourse, and we've turned it into a treatise against worry. We've turned it into an indictment of worry. See, that's why God says don't worry, and I'm not supposed to worry. And I'm not actually saying that the Bible says you should worry necessarily, like worry isn't the problem, but this text is not about not worrying. This text is about worrying about the right things. It's not a text to say be unconcerned, be apathetic about the world, don't worry about anything. That's not what Jesus is saying. He's not saying don't worry about anything. He's saying don't worry about foolish things. He's saying don't worry about things that are temporal. He's saying don't worry about things that the pagans worry about. He's saying, look, my people will have concern in their heart. They'll have great anguish, actually, for change in the world, but just not the things that other people have anguish over. They're going to worry, in a sense. I mean, for lack of a better way to say it, we have this tank full of worry. It is, we will worry about things. We will wring our hands over something in the world. And either we wring our hands over something that matters, that actually makes a difference, that actually is eternal, or we wring our hands over things that don't matter. I mean, there's nothing worse to see, for me at least, than to see a group of Christians who don't ever engage themselves in eternal things, and so they end up worrying and wringing their hands over foolish things. This is where the idea of foolish controversies, why Christians are always picking on each other, because they're not actually in a fight that matters. This is part of why mission is so critical for us, because we're supposed to be worried about some things in this world, but just the right things. So if you think about what do you worry about, what should you be worrying about? I'll take Monica, for example. I don't think she's in here, but I think she's in with the kids this morning. But Monica does not worry about how clean our house is, for example. It's just not something she worries about. I worry about that more than she worries about it. And I came to this conclusion over this holiday that you can have all your kids home, or you can have a clean house. But you can't have both. You can't dream of both things happening. It's not possible. Just the amount of shoes that were in my living room at one time this break was obscene, the amount of shoes. And so Monica she's not so into worrying about how neat or clean the house is. This is a little bit of a strain for she and I, but it's just not something that she worries about. But I will tell you one thing she does worry about. Recently, and this is a somewhat recent phenomenon in our neighborhood, people started dealing drugs right outside our door, right outside our front house. Now, there's always been drug transactions happening in and around our neighborhood, but usually they're at the one end of the street or the other end of the street, but never right in front of our house. And some people can actually witness to this. When Monica sees someone dealing drugs in front of our house, she's like 5'0", and she comes running out of the house, and she's also a non-confrontational person. She's an Enneagram 9, but she makes a warpath out of our door to whoever's selling drugs, goes right in the middle of the transaction and says, "Do not sell drugs. What are you doing? Do not sell drugs in front of my house." And I'm always like, "Oh my God!" I'm back there going, "No, stop! What's happening?" Monica, no. And then I'm torn. I'm torn because on the one hand I think that can't be safe. That doesn't seem safe that she's interjecting herself. I mean, these are like, seasoned people who are maybe not 100% concerned with her well-being or law and order or something like that. And so there could be some concern for her well-being. But you know what? At the end of it, I sit back, I cringe a little, but I sit back and I just think, you know what? Do your thing, lady. I mean, is there another thing in this world more powerful, more potent than a mother protecting her children? And I'm going to stand in the way of that? And actually, so something changed in my mind. I started thinking, I'm not so worried about Monica. I'm actually worried about these poor people selling drugs in front of our house. I just think, I wouldn't do it, man. I'm looking back, I'm like, just do what she says. You know what I mean? Just move along. That's what I would do, I don't recommend it. What is she worried about? She's worried about people selling drugs outside our front door. And she busts it up every time. Because she's worried about her kids. That's what she's worried about. She's worried about the sanctity of that place in front of our house. The kingdom, that's ground that we've taken for the kingdom. And she doesn't want to lose it. She doesn't want to give it back. And what is she wasting her energy on? If all the shoes are put away? No. Or that her kids are safe. And this is precisely what I think Jesus means. Don't worry so much about the things you know in the end don't matter. Worry instead about the kingdom. I'm going to give you this as maybe a little bit of a tool to help, because there's something interesting I noticed this week about this text. He's not saying, don't worry. You know the prayer, the sort of prayer, God, the serenity prayer, to not worry about the things I cannot change, that sort of thing. And there's a question here where is Jesus saying, don't worry about things you cannot change. But that's not what he's saying. But I want to bring that into the mix here, because actually what he's saying is, because what you wear and what you eat is something that you can change. Do you understand? That is within your realm of control, what you wear and eat. And the problem is not that we worry about things we can't change. The problem is we worry about insignificant things that we can change. The little things of our lives that we can have control over, which gives us a false sense that we are in control in our lives. We want to take control over the small and insignificant details of our lives so that we can feel a sense of deity, a sense that we are God over our lives. We have control over our lives. And part of what happens in this transaction where you no longer live your life for yourself or for that sense of your own kingdom, but for this other kingdom, is the letting go of this false sense that you can actually bring about real change in your life by yourself. So there are some things you can change and some things you can't change. There are some things that are the kingdom and some things that are not the kingdom. So let me give you a little 2x2 for that. So there are things that are not the kingdom, and there are things that are about the kingdom. And then there are things that you cannot change, cannot control, and then there are things that you can change and can control. So that stands to reason then. There are things that are not, you cannot change them, and they're not the kingdom anyway. Can I give you an example of that category? Who's the President of the United States? You can neither change that, nor is that, in my opinion, a kingdom matter. At least not anymore. You follow me? Oh, you're so nervous. Your little nervous laughter there. So I would say this is a waste of your worry tank. This is a waste of your energy. Anything that you cannot change anyway, and it's not even about the kingdom. Don't worry about it, right? who wins the Super Bowl? Don't waste your worry on that. Can we agree? No? Come on, guys. Give me something. And then there are things that you cannot change, but they are the kingdom. Can I give you an example of that? That would be something like, I don't know, the whole world hearing the gospel. Poverty being abolished. In the end, your singular actions are not going to actually, they're not able to change that. And yet that is a kingdom thing. That is something that God must do, will do, has promised to do. And I'm actually saying to not spend your time and energy on that either. Because you can't change it. And even though it is a matter for the kingdom, it's extreme. That's extreme. It's very, okay. Whoever you are, I love you. And then there are those things that you can change. You can change them. They're within your realm of change, but they're not the kingdom. Okay? This is Jesus' point. What you eat, what you wear, how many shoes are in the living room. I mean, they're not really the kingdom. You want to pretend like they are the kingdom, but they're not. You want to make it a matter for the kingdom, but it's not. But there are things you can change. That's very tempting to spend our energy there. Total waste of time here. Feels like this would be sort of martyrdom to spend your energy here. But this is the temptation. This is what Jesus is saying. Is so much temptation for you to make your New Year's resolutions about that. About how many times you go to the gym, or what you eat, or how you look, or how much money you're going to make this year. Set your goals up on things that you know you can change. They are within your change. But the truth is there's no real eternal value to those things. I'm not saying they're bad. Jesus isn't saying they're bad. In point of fact, Jesus is saying, let God do those things for you. But whatever energy you have, he's saying, put it in this box. That is, things that you actually have power to change, and things that are the kingdom of God, that bring the kingdom of God. This is where we should be investing our energy. Again, this is not so much a question of time or time management, although that's connected to it, but it's investing you have a certain amount of energy per day, per month, per week. Where will you invest it? Will you invest it in things that have eternal significance? Or will you invest it in things that have zero eternal significance? The truth is, if we looked at the way that we spend our energy, how much time actually goes into things that are eternal? That will last beyond our lifetime, or that will echo, we will bring with us into heaven. That's an important question. So let me leave you this question, and maybe you could just jot this down. I'll give you maybe 10 seconds to think about this. What is something that you want to stop spending your energy on? Just maybe one thing you could think in terms of the category of energy. Maybe I need to spend less energy on what? And likewise, what is something you think, okay, that thing I should give more energy to? I should invest more of my energy into that thing. That's kingdom, and that I can change. Write that down. Excellent. Second valuable that you have to steward is your relationships. The people in your life, we'll call this your network. Your friends, your colleagues, your family, all of us have this. Just like all of us have some energy. I mean, even people with physical limitations, they still have some energy to give. And even people with say social limitations, or they don't have a lot of friends or a huge social network, you do have some people in your life. And those people become a currency. They become something to be stewarded. They have value. That network has value. I have a picture. Leanne, are you ready to show up that picture? Actually, I forgot my little pointer. Can someone get my pointer? I left it on the I left it on my my little table by my desk. You're going to have to run, though. You're going to have to go faster now. There you go. Good job. So here's the thing. Everybody has a network. And I think maybe part of what not yet. Nope, didn't say it. Part of what sums up a network is like the idea of a wedding party. So if you get married, when you get married, there's a bunch of people you reach out to and you say, I want you to be a part of my wedding party because you're core central to my life. So maybe you've already been married and you had a wedding party. Maybe if you were to get married in the future, who would you have in your wedding party? It's just a representation of your social network. And we all have a social network. Now what's interesting is I found this picture of a wedding. Thank you, you're the best. I found this picture of a wedding, which I want to show you. So now you can put it up, Leanne. Good timing. So what's cool about this particular picture is that what you need to know is that the photographer who was taking this picture was backing up into the street and was hit by a car or nearly killed by a car that kind of, he's okay, so it's not that kind of illustration. But what's cool is he took a picture right as a car is like hitting him. And these are your friends. So this group of people represents your friends. Okay? So you have, for example, the achievers. You know, the people that are like, we're taking a picture and I'm going to stay focused here. Nope. Yep. There she is. I'm not losing we're smiling. We're taking a picture and let's do this. I don't care if someone's being hit by a car. We're trying to take a picture and I'm going to stay focused on that. You have a group of people like that. Not going to be distracted by the photographer being hit by a car. Keep your pose, hold your pose, hold your pose. Then you have the compassionate people, you know, the open mouth. Oh my gosh, this is so sad. It's so horrible. This is terrible. And there's people in your life like that. I don't know what that guy's doing. This guy, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Compassionate hearts. There's more women with compassion than men with compassion. They're afraid for his life, and they're displaying that in this moment of candid reflection, you know. And then there's I don't know, there's the indifferent people. Is he yawning? Seriously, I feel like he might be yawning in this moment. There's also the friend that's maybe disgusted, like, how dare you ruin my friend's wedding pictures by being hit by a car. How dare you? Each of our networks is made up of a diverse group of people. In fact, if you were to you can drop it. In fact, if you were to think about your friend group, your network, your family, whatever, just in two basic categories, you'd think, okay, some of them believe in Jesus, are committed to the kingdom, and some of them aren't. And that distinction alone becomes super important when you think about how you steward your life. There are people in your network of relationships who don't know Jesus. And because of that, those people need to become a primary source for you to think about your expression of the kingdom coming in the world. Do you believe that Jesus is the hope for every human being? If you do, and within your social network, within your family and friends and colleagues, there is someone that does not know that hope yet, how can you not make that person central to your life's calling and work? God has put that person within your framework, your relational framework, and that person now becomes an essential person for mission. Don't say that you love mission or want to see the kingdom come if you'll never share Jesus with that person who's directly in your relational network. And then, of course, there are those people in your network who already know Jesus and believe in him. And I would say that to that group of people, we might ask a second question, which is, what is it that I can ask from them in order to be more engaged in the work of the kingdom? Some of you have very clear missions, things that God has called you to do. And you have a group of Christians who are not really engaged in mission, but who say they love Jesus. And I believe it's possible that you could be guilty of the sin of under-influencing those people. You could actually be guilty of sin of not asking them for more engagement in the thing you're doing. The truth is you have some relational connection to them. You should be bringing them into the work you're doing. Either by asking them to come and participate directly, to pray for you, to come and see what you do, or to give money to you, or in some way you need to be turning to those people in your social network and saying, come on, get involved, get engaged in what I'm doing. And so there's really two, was it Spurgeon said, you're either a missionary or you're a mission field. And the truth is, that is the way we can see the world. Our networks are broken up either into somebody that is a compatriot working toward the kingdom, that's committed to the kingdom themselves, in which case we say, well, is there more you could do? Can you help me as I go and do this thing? Or people who themselves are outside of the kingdom, which we must live and pour out our lives so that they would come in to the kingdom. This is the gift we give of participation in both cases. And so take out your pen again and let's just think about your relationships. Is there a relationship or relationships that you want to give yourself more to this year? Someone or some group of people that you think, I need to give more of myself to those people. Maybe it's a person, maybe it's a group of people. Just write that down. And likewise, is there someone who you need to ask more from? Is there someone within your relational network that you need to ask more from? Good. Third, the third valuable thing that you have to steward in your life is your money. Now, we rarely talk about money in the underground. We rarely talk about it in terms of your personal money and the way you use it or how you give. We don't really talk a lot about financial stewardship. And I'm gonna actually explain why for a second. And I'm not making an excuse, I'm just giving you history. Part of the reason why we don't talk a lot about money, because, in the traditions that I came up in, money would have been something that would have been talked about every single Sunday. Every single time there was a sermon before the sermon which was about money. And it was to try to twist your arm or convince you that you needed to give money. And the reason why, I understand because I see behind the scenes, the reason why was because that was the only way, that was the financial model. That was the way to fund the whole enterprise, was to convince people that if they didn't give, they were somehow guilty of some egregious sin. And so there's all this sort of strange juju that goes around money and how money is used in the church and a sort of hiding of it. It's not completely transparent. And then all this talking about you need to give, but you're really giving to God. And I was always very confused by that because I felt like I was putting money in a plate, a beautiful silver plate, and the money went to God somehow. Like God has a bank account and they put it in God's bank account. And yet I know for a fact that God doesn't have a bank account in this world. And I know for a fact he's not getting a single dollar of that money. I mean, we all know that. And yet we're buying into this idea that it's for God, it's not for us. It's not for my new car, it's not for the parking lot, it's not for anything practical or real that we can see and touch, that we can really look at. It's somehow just for God. Now, am I saying that isn't true? No. In fact, when we give, something actually, worship happens in the act of generosity and giving. 100% that's true. But it's just all the stuff that went around it that just made it very distasteful to me and to many of us. Those of us that kind of were the original kind of group of people that started the underground. We just had a bad feeling about money and the way the money was used, and it was distasteful to us. So we kept away from it. I mean, we overcompensated, as we have done with so many things. We overcorrected and overcompensated. And so we said, we're never going to talk about money. We're going to talk about money once a year for like an hour, and that's going to be it. And we're just going to trust the generosity of our people, trust the discipleship of our people. And the truth is, underground people are quite generous. And yet when it comes to money, the use of money, we're just as bad as everyone else. Just the same. We still are not, we don't give in some kind of radical way that totally reflects our values. And now this is something that I know because I've walked with you now for 10 years. And so we're able to see the dynamics and to see that we're not as strong as we thought we were in this area. And maybe we just don't know as much as we should know about the whole thing. The truth is too, we were reacting, I'll tell you this, we were reacting to at least what was sort of on the sort of the waning end of influence in the church in America was this idea of prosperity, that God, you give $100 and he'll give you 1,000 in return. And you sort of sowing a seed so that you can get more money back. It was almost like a greed motivation for giving. So you give money so that you can get more money in the future. It's like test God and see, pressed down, shaken together, running over. Will he not give into your lap that which you give? So 100-fold, 10-fold, millionfold, trillionfold. It was just all nonsense. It wasn't biblical. And furthermore, it was really driven by, in many, many cases, maybe not every case, but in many cases, it was driven by a greed motivation from the people doing the talking. I mean, an evil motivation from the people doing the talking. And so part of what we were doing was reacting to that and saying, we won't be like that. We're gonna structure, create a budget which is so radically committed to the poor and to mission, and to carefully using every single dollar we do, so that not a single dollar is wasted and everything is 100% transparent. And we were reacting in part to that excess, that mistake that the church was making. But the truth is, the idea of prosperity and prosperity gospel and all this stuff, it's dead. No intelligent thinking Christian is really buying into that anymore, except your aunt so-and-so, who I understand still might feel that way a little bit, but not really. It doesn't have a hold of the throat of the church anymore like it did 20 years ago. And so it's not as keen of a threat as it used to be. You know what the more pressing threat for us, though? Now for us, and this is just in speak, this is just private between you and me and everybody on the internet. It's just our bigger threat now is we say, well, I give my time, I give myself, I don't have to give my money. And now what we've done is we've made the exact opposite error. Now what we've done is we have become the greedy one. We have said, look, I don't trust those people. I'm not giving my money to those people. Money can't be the thing anymore, the primary transaction between us and God and between us and the church. But the truth is, Jesus talked more about money than he talked about most subjects. It's the second most talked about subject. He had no problem. In fact, he was very eager to get into people's financial business. He wanted us to see the connection of the way we spend money and how it connects to our heart. And so, for that matter, it is something we must take seriously. When Jesus talked about money and he didn't shy away from it, he called people to give, to give to give sacrificially. It was part of his early ministry. It was a part of the apostles' ministry after he was gone. And not just the customary 10%, which was a part of the tradition, the giving tradition of all Jewish people, but to give in such a way that ushered in the kingdom, that brought justice. To give in such a way that mirrored the work of the cross and the way of Jesus. To give, listen, this is really important, to give in a way that was sacrificial. You felt it. It was hard. It was more than you thought you could give. Not long ago, I read about a Maasai tribe in Kenya, who when they heard about the 9/11, the attack in New York City, this little tribe, this Maasai people in Kenya, were so overcome with sympathy for the people of New York City, that this poor people that have no electricity, don't have running water, some of the poorest people and yet proudest people in the world, they said they felt such sympathy for the people of New York City, for American people, that had happened to them, that they got together, had a little tribal council, and they said, we must give. We must give. And so they took what to them was the most valuable things that they had. They took 14 head of cattle. And they went down to the U.S. delegate in the embassy in Kenya there, and they donated their 14 cattle to the people of New York City. William Brennick, the deputy head of the U.S. embassy there, received the gift. And this is what he said in response. I know that for the Maasai people, the cow is valued above all possessions, and that the gift of a cow is the highest expression of regard and sympathy. When we count the value of these cows, and when we add the value of the great spirits that have given them, we can say without a doubt that you seem richer still. What makes giving significant in our lives is when it is done as a reflection of love. When it somehow reminds us of Jesus and his work, when it shows the world a picture of what it was that Jesus did for us. What makes giving an act of life and grace for us is when it mirrors our hearts to the world as the way of Jesus. Giving is about love. It's about love. No greater love has anyone than he laid down his life for his friends. Love is sacrifice, and God is love. We're supposed to be experts in love, aren't we? We're supposed to be experts in love. We're not just supposed to be generous, we're supposed to be surrendered, which means that we're not just generous, like, oh, I have extra, I'll give you some, but we give even out of what we have that we feel we need. Even our giving breaches that wall into the place of the things we think we need so that we feel that sense of sacrifice, so that we are connected to God's heart for the world and for people. I'm telling you, you have to find a way to give your money so significantly, so radically, that you feel like it is an act of worship. You remember the cross when you do it. You remember that he gave all he had for you. You remember that the work of the kingdom is the greatest work that your life is involved in and the most important thing that you can spend money on. Not the last thing you spend money on. Not the first thing to go when you run out of money. And we make pledges. This is how we operate. We operate by saying in the beginning of a year, we trust each other to say, all right, count on me for $2,000 this year. Count on me for $5,000. Count on me for $600 this year. Whatever it is that people feel they can give, that they're supposed to give. And you know what? We have a huge fail rate on that. People don't do what they say. You haven't always done what you said you would do. And for me, that is the greater problem. Because what happens is you're still paying your cell bill, I promise you. You're still paying your Netflix. You do not go a month without that. You're still making sure there's money to go out to eat. You're still making sure you have insurance on your car, all that stuff. The question is a question of priority. So if you think that God, and I'm not telling you what to give or how much to give, that is completely between you and God. And I'm not even telling you where to give. If it's the underground, great. I think the underground is the best place in the world to give money. But if you don't think that, give it somewhere else. That's not the issue. The issue is, do we see, can you see in the use of your money, that key resource in your life, your commitment to the kingdom of God? And that means the only way I know to demonstrate that commitment consistently in your own heart is to practice what the Old Testament called first fruits. It means when you get a paycheck, the first bit that comes out is the bit that's given to the kingdom. Not the last bit, the first bit. And whatever is left, that's what you live on. And whatever you feel called and committed to give between you and God, as you have prayed and thought about it and heard him challenge you or call you to a place of sacrifice, then you say yes to that. That is the first thing you give. If you find $20 on the ground or in your pocket, the first thing that pops in your mind is how much of the beginning bits, the first bit, before I spend anything on anything else, the kingdom comes first. If we change that one thing about the way we spend money, our lives would be totally different. Our hearts would bend. And I think that's a matter of love. I think it's a matter of what you love. And if the truth is, if you love your cell phone service, your data plan more than you love the kingdom, that's the truth you have to live with, you have to wrestle with. And this environment, the underground, is an environment rich with giving opportunities because it's rich with love. There's a lot of people here who love a lot of things, who love a lot of people out in the world, who love a lot of causes. And it's a beautiful, rich place to give. So if you cannot give here, I just don't know that you'll give anywhere. Break that idol in your life. Get free of it. Decide this year that you will be sacrificial, that you will be a kingdom person in the way that you give money, that you will break its hold over you by saying, the only way I know to let money not control you is to give it away. It's the only way I know. You know, we're talking about fasting this year. That also is a principle of the first fruits. The reason why we're calling for a fast at the beginning of the year is because these are the first days. These are the first days of this year. And I for one, and I hope you do too, want to just say that with these first few days of this year, Lord, you are what matters to me. Your calling, renew it in my heart. Your love for the people that you've called me to, for this city, for my neighborhood, for that group. Lord, renew that passion, that zeal in me. Lord, do a work through me this year. That prayer, that consistent, held on to, continued prayer over the course of the first few days of the year. I want to take the first 7 days of this year and say, Lord, I'm yours. All that I am is yours. Use me again, renew me again, and I'll do without food or whatever it is that you can choose to sacrifice or put aside that's important to you this week so that you feel it, something so that you feel it. And you're reminded that's about first fruits too. That's why we do it. And what is Jesus? Why don't we give? This is the last thing I'll say about this. You know why we don't give? It's not because you're greedy people. It's not because you don't have love for each other. I'll tell you, you know why you don't give? Or you know why you come up short in your plan or your commitment to give? Because you're afraid. Because you're afraid. Because you're afraid there won't be enough for you. Because you're afraid that if you give this money, you won't be able to replace it. You're afraid that God won't take care of you. You're afraid. And Jesus knows that, and he goes right to the heart of the matter, and he says, do not be afraid, little flock. Your Father has seen fit to give you the whole kingdom. Now you have a choice. You can have Netflix and a great data plan and a killer car and a nice apartment, or you can have the kingdom. You choose which you want. You choose where you will invest your time, your money, yourself, and if you want those things, if that is the wholeness of the thing that you want to live for, then you know what? You can have that. It will leave you empty and full of regrets, but you can have that. You can say, my whole life is for this, and you can get that. It's possible. The humanists are right. Or you can live for the kingdom. And the one really, if you really boil down our motivation, is about fear. And if you just won't be afraid, if you'll just say, I'm going to be okay, God is going to take care of me. And I'm going to do what he's called me to do. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to be sacrificial. I'm going to look like him. I'm going to live like he lived and gave everything away. I'm going to be like that. And if you choose to be like that, he will sort you out. In fact, he won't just give you the little things you need. He will give you the entirety of the kingdom of God. And maybe in some way those twisted prosperity preachers were right. He will make you rich beyond your wildest dreams. Not rich in this world's goods, but rich in a way that lasts for eternity. You choose. And guys, I'm telling you, and I have not said this enough, and for that I'm sorry. I repent. I am telling you, the way you spend your money matters. The way you give your money matters in that fight. Take out your pen again and maybe just write down, how would you like to grow this year in your giving? Again, I don't know how much you should give. The simplest thing to do is to look at what you gave last year and just commit to give more. If no other reason, just say, I want to grow in the grace of giving. And Paul said to the Corinthians, look, you excel in all these things. You excel in all these gifts, and you do, by the way, underground. You excel in so many things. And then he said this, my prayer is that you would excel also in the grace of giving. And that is my prayer for you. And so it's just about growth. Can you just say, all right, I want to do better than I did last year. And then next year, after that, I want to do better again and better again and better. For me, that's a percentage. I look at percentage, not dollars, but percentage. And somewhere way back when, I started at 10%. That's where I thought, that's a baseline for generosity. Just start at 10%. And then try every year to grow. 11, 12, 15, grow so that you give more and more as a percentage of your total income. That's just my suggestion for you. As you grow as a disciple maker, I would say just try to find a way to grow. Just like everything else that matters to you, get better at it year after year. How would you like to grow this year in giving? And maybe as a mirror question, is there something you'd like to stop spending money on? Something that doesn't maybe reflect the fullness of your values of the kingdom. I mean, Jesus makes the argument, if you say, I don't have any money or anything, he said, you could sell your possessions. And that in of itself can be a really beautiful discipline, to go through your house and your life and to just sell everything. Maybe not everything, but sell all. How about this? Just sell all the things you haven't used in the last 6 months. Sell them. And give that money to the poor. Give that money away to the kingdom. Do you know how much money we could make if we did that? It's just an idea, but we make a lot of money. I mean, we did that recently. Like last year, we did that. We went through our house, and I just got all the kids. I said, bring everything that has not been used in the last 2 months, and it's all going to go on Craigslist. It's all going to either be thrown away, or it's going to be sold, or it's going to be given away. And it was all because I felt this urge to give some money to someone I know in another country who had great need. And I didn't have the cash flow. And so I said, let's sell. That's another thing you could do. And I want to say we ended up raising, I don't know if the kids are here, but I ended up raising maybe $2,000 or $3,000 by doing that. What would you maybe like to stop spending? Maybe write that down. Last thing. The last gift you have to steward is your heart. Something gripped me in this reading. Jesus said, consider how the wildflowers grow. And so I did. Maybe for the first time, I actually stopped and tried to consider how wildflowers grow. See, for a wildflower, the seeds, it's not mechanized, it's random. Wildflowers, the seeds are caught on the wind, and they just land where they land. And wherever it is that seed lands, it wants to grow. That's the beginning of the growth of a wildflower. And Jesus is saying, stop for a second and consider how wildflowers grow. The seeds are scattered. They're not tended to by anyone. There's no human being who comes along and looks at them or waters them or tills the soil. They fall where they fall, and they find a way to grow there. They grow anywhere they land, and they put energy into two things. Wildflowers put their energy into two things. Digging their roots deep into that soil, wherever they find themselves, and arching the bud of their growth toward the sun and the heavens. Roots in the earth, face to heaven. This is how they grow. This is how wildflowers grow. They exert all they have toward those two ends, no other. Digging in their roots, turning their face toward heaven. The roots of the soil of your life, your calling, your community, your commitments. These should get the full exertion of the roots of your life. Dig in. Go deeper. But what about your face? Your hungers, your desires, your heart's yearnings, your ambitions, your hopes, your dreams. They should be pointed at heaven alone. Invite up the worship team. Dig in your roots, lift up your eyes. This is the stewardship of the heart. The truth is, all that we do, Jesus makes this connection between what we give, the money, our treasure, and our hearts. He wants us to see that actually what is driving your life at every turn, what is pushing or motivating your life really is your heart. It's your heart. Your heart is what you love. Your heart is what you want. Your heart is your desires. Your heart is your dreams. Your heart is not something you can lie about. Your heart is not something that you can hide from yourself. Your heart is what it is. The heart wants what the heart wants. And this, in the end, becomes the most enigmatic, elusive, and yet important part of ourselves, of who we are, and what it is that we have to manage or steward is our hearts, the affections of our hearts, the fascinations of our hearts. And guys, when you start getting fascinated with video games or sports, or when you start getting more fascinated with the show you're watching, or you get more fascinated with a relationship than you are about God, about Jesus, then something is wrong. You're not going to be able to invest in the kingdom. Your heart is already given to something else. Your career, how much money you can keep for yourself, that possession that you want to buy, that new house, that somehow expression of success in this world, whatever those things are. Guys, they're coming for your hearts. They want your hearts. They want your worship, your love, your affection, your fascination. And there's no chance for us to be effective missionaries. There's no chance for us to grow into the fullness of what it means to be a part of the kingdom, to receive that great gift from Him, if our hearts are given to something else. On Christmas Eve, I just wanted to be alone, and I just wanted to think and pray, and I just wanted a minute with God, before God. I mean, I loved Christmas. I love it all. I don't even mind the secular stuff, and I liked being with my family, and all the bits of it just were there. It's nice. It's a nice time. But I felt this yearning to be near Him. It's just hard to carve out time in that. So I just decided it was Christmas Eve, and I thought I'm going to go to Mass. I'm going to go to Catholic Mass. And there's a nice Christmas Eve Mass over here at Sacred Heart, which is beautiful. It's downtown, this beautiful rose window in this extraordinary building. Everything I'm against. And I just said, okay, Noah, I asked all the kids, does anyone want to go? And Noah said, I'll go with you. So we go to Catholic Mass, and we sit in the back, this packed, beautiful, ornate, extraordinary building. And they go through the liturgy of the Mass. And if you grew up Catholic or you're Catholic, whatever, it's all quite boring, And you know what my favorite part was? Because I was very moved by the whole thing. And I just felt such grace being there. My favorite part was the priest, the head person, the guy with the big hat, gets up. It's full. I mean, it's hundreds of people, right? It's this big, beautiful church, and this big, important man with this important clothes, and he gets up and he started giving his little homily, his little sermon, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good. And he was stuttering. And I just thought, this is incredible. I love this so much. Everything about this I love. I started realizing the church is not built on one person. It's not about whether he's a good speaker or not a good speaker. I just thought, oh, how liberating this all is to me. The people are going to come or they're not going to come by whether or not he's eloquent or whether or not he's got all the right moves in leadership or whether or not he's got the right vision or the right program or this guy was just free from all of that nonsense. He wasn't a famous Christian. He wasn't trying to be a famous Christian. You know what made him important or what made him significant? He was the custodian of that church. And I just thought, it doesn't matter whether he's a good speaker or not. It matters that he stepped up and he said, the church is bigger than me. The work of God is bigger than me. The kingdom of God is bigger than me. And I just felt that in this room. I just thought, you know what? There's nothing about this which is about this man. It's about the Eucharist that sits on the table. It's about a story that's been told and protected by these people, poorly at times, but protected for 2,000 years, treasured. That's what the church is. That's what the kingdom is. That's what matters. Not how good the preacher is, or how good the band is, or how good the children's programs are, how far we have fallen. And I find myself so strangely liberated in this cracked up high church environment, and I just think, this is good. The church is transcendent, and God is transcendent, and the people come and the people go, and it doesn't matter. I'm not that important. God, let me just be part of it somehow. To play some small role in my own stuttering, foolish way. With all my frailties and all my failures, I just want to be a steward in your church. What made that man significant was not his ability to speak or lead or be anything, but what made him significant is that he was allowed to touch the sacred things and to offer them to the world. And so it is with you and me. God, I turn my face toward you today, toward heaven today. Will you turn your heart toward him? Will you surrender again? The best of me, God, all of me, I give to you. My heart, my longings are yours, Lord Jesus. My life is yours. I am broken and I am sorry. I am dim-witted and I am sad. I am proud and I am distracted and I'm prone to wandering, but I am whatever I am yours. All yours. And you, Lord Jesus, can have me again. For your cause. So that your people, your children, might hear good news and rejoice. That the world would be healed, that demons would scatter, be bound and gagged. That people would be made free in your name. Lord, of all the things that I'll do in 2017, I want the things that free people. That see your gospel preached and your goodness known. I want those things for my life. And that words of that old poem by C.T. Studd. 2 little lines I heard one day traveling along life's busy way, bringing conviction to my heart, and from my mind would not depart. Only one life, it will soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. Give me, Father, a purpose deep, in joy or sorrow, the word to keep, faithful and true, whatever the strife, pleasing Thee in my daily life. Only one life, it will soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. Oh, let my love with fervor burn, and from the world now let me turn, living for Thee and Thee alone, bringing Thee pleasure on Thy throne. Only one life, it will soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. The night He was betrayed, Jesus took bread, and after giving thanks, He broke it. And He said, "This is my body broken for you. Eat it to remember me." In the same way, after supper, he took the cup and he said, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is shed for the forgiveness of sin. Drink it to remember me."